Hello and welcome back to the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. In the wake of a 1978 Genesis World Tour, Phil Collins found himself alone and without his family, having been left by his then wife who took their 2 children to Canada. Amidst the heartache and the uncertainty, Collins wrote and executed one of the most honest and emotional pop albums of the 80s. Face Value utilises great production, genre blending and emotional lyrics to portray Phil Collins' feelings of the time, and what we got was one of the most introspective and heartfelt pop albums of the 80s that set a lyrical and musical standard for generations to come. Joining me to discuss this album is my co-host Mr. Felipe Amorim. How you doing, bro?
Doing great, man, and you?
Good, yeah, very well, thank you, very well. How are things with you? All good?
Yeah, I've been enjoying the summer that finally feels like summer. Yeah.
Well, it feels like summer because it's consistent, and what's consistent is that we get 2 days of heat a week, and that's it. The rest is the rain, isn't it? So at least it's consistent through June through to August. It looks like we're going to get about 2 days of sun a week. But yeah, anyway, guys, welcome back to the show. Little terms and conditions that we like to throw in at the start. Please do us a favour, and if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe to stay up to date with our content and also to get our videos shown to more people. And if you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, do us a favour, go down, do us a quick review so that we get sent up the charts. We sort of ascend through the algorithms and we get shown to the right people. So as you heard, this is an album episode and we are doing Face Value by Phil Collins, released in 1981. So I'll go through some quick facts for you. Released in February of 1981, recorded between August and December 1980 at the Townhouse in London, the Old Croft in Surrey, and the Village Recorder in Los Angeles. Now, genres associated with the album would be pop rock, some R&B, art rock, and even blue-eyed soul. The length of the album is just under 48 minutes, and it was released on the Virgin label with Phil Collins himself and Hugh Padgham producing. So, time to talk about the album. I think I chose this one, didn't I? Because this is just one of those that I've always heard about. Always everyone said, oh, it's one of those you got to listen to. You know, it's one of those 80s albums it's always a must listen to. And so that's why I chose it. So do you want to kick off, bro? Are there any thoughts
this is definitely an album that changed the game for pop music, isn't it? So from time to time, we talk about pop music here instead of rock music, isn't it? And this, for me, is a pop masterpiece brought to life by a prog rock master.
I'm curious. You said the word masterpiece. Do you really? Are you going by what everyone? So you believe it is?
Yeah, it is.
Let's start there. Tell me why. Why is it masterpiece?
The sounds in this album, and what you said at the beginning, when you blending different genres, right? Sometimes in pop music, people are really afraid of experimenting with anything, because the whole premise of pop music is to do something that is going to be commercially viable, right? That's pop music in a nutshell. Yep. Here's one interesting thing about this album. There's not a single fast song in the album.
True.
Think about it.
Yeah, there are some funky songs, but not fast.
Funky, but no, the BPMs are really slow, all of it, most of it. Mid-tempo or slow tempo. There's 2 instrumental tracks that blend into each other with some weird choir melodies but no lyrics, and loads of percussion, like world music stuff, like loads percussion from different styles and genres, and you have the mix of acoustic drums and percussion with electronic beats, which I mean he was one of the first songwriters to do it properly. So I think it's quite a lot of experiment for an album that is such a commercial success, you know. And and you can hear the elements of prog music and the way he arranges stuff and the way he writes. And also, like, there was something about you've got to consider that I believe that Phil Collins didn't want to prove himself as a solo artist. I don't think he needed to. I think he proved himself as one of the best prog rock drummers in history, and he's also really good at jazz drumming as well, but that's another story. And he proved that he could take the lead as the singer in the band and replace Peter Gabriel. That's not an easy task, and he did a
Well,
phenomenal job.
well,
And in
that's what
terms,
happened
yeah,
with Genesis.
yeah,
I'll give a bit of
yeah,
background to the album. So, 8 years they were in Genesis together, weren't they?
yeah.
Peter Gabriel sang for the first 5 years, but then Phil Collins came in and he did the singing after Peter Gabriel left. Now, I'm not well versed on
Well,
Genesis, but that's how it went,
he
isn't it?
didn't, yeah, he didn't want to be a singer in the
Right.
band. He
He was
was a
just kind
great
of
singer, but
forced
he
into
wanted to
that.
be the drum. But like the lead singer left, you can sing, so go and do the job. I said, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And it's like
Something.
you're not replacing it just like any normal singers, Peter Gabriel,
Yeah.
right? So
Something really interesting is that you said you didn't think he fancied doing a solo album himself. Something I was reading about is actually the other members of Genesis, Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford. At the same time, Phil Collins was writing Face Value. They were writing solo albums as well.
yeah,
So do you
exactly.
think there was a little bit of a inner competition? Not competition necessarily, but a little bit of Phil Collins thinking, well, the rest of the band are writing solo albums. I've got to do something.
Well, yeah, I think it was maybe forced into a break. I mean, apparently the reason for his divorce is he was never home, always touring and doing stuff. So he actually wanted to keep working. That was his normal kind of mindset. And the other guys are doing the solo stuff, and he's been through a divorce. He's on his own, no band, no family. So might as well just do some work. I think that's what he thought, and I think he
Mm.
wanted to just express himself using the ideas he couldn't use as a band member.
Yeah,
It's
where when
like
someone else cuts down
yeah,
an idea.
I don't actually believe he imagined that would be one of the most iconic pop albums of all time. I think he just wanted to do it for himself. And
Yeah.
maybe that's why it's so good. And there's something about the drum sound. There's a cool interview. I'll send you the link. And as you guys know, everything we mentioned here, the links are going to be at the description of the episode. See, I'm getting good at this.
Well done,
And
Felipe. Proud of you.
and there's an interview.
Only took 78 episodes.
Exactly. There's an interesting thing. Everyone talks about the sound, and especially the drums in the album. So he did the pre-production, most of it in his bedroom with an 8-track tape machine. So he's just like going through ideas and recording demos, doing his pre-production on his own, playing keyboards and drums and singing. And then when he went to record the drums for In the Air Tonight, he went to that studio. Is it the Townhouse studio in London? You've mentioned the name of the studio.
Yeah. Yes, the Townhouse in London.
Where he previously recorded drums for Peter Gabriel's solo album. So he did some drumming for Peter Gabriel in his solo album, and first solo album, I guess, or second, I don't know. And then he wanted to go to that studio because they had a stone wall behind the drum kit, and that's not the usual kind of stuff. And it's just a weird sound, and it's massive. It's that huge drum sound, and he said, I want this sound in my album. So it's not like what people do in pop music. So I don't care. Like, I'm doing this for myself. So that's rock and roll, right? It's like, I want this sound. I want the drum sound like this. And I think he was kind of, apparently was sound checking or trying stuff. And he did that iconic fill for In the Air Tonight. And the engineer was like, yeah, well, that's a cool one, isn't it? So yeah, I'll keep it then. Put in the song.
Nice.
That was it.
Let's talk about production then, because you've kind of linked it really well. Now, one thing that actually stands out about this album, and we've said, musically, lyrically, we're going to touch on a bit later, but musically, this does stand as a very, I wouldn't necessarily say innovative album, but well, maybe it is innovative. But anyway, production is a massive part of that, because there is something, and I did a bit of reading on it, called gated reverb, and this is what Phil Collins applied to the drums of this album that hadn't been done before, and it went on to influence many, most of the pop music in the 80s, to be honest. What's your take as a drummer on the drum sound he's achieved? How did he achieve it? Why did he go for it? Does it work? How does it work?
I think I normally joke that the snare sound of the 80s, the snare drum sound from the 80s, we can still hear the reverb today. The first snare that was played in the 80s, we can still hear the reverb. People overdid that kind of stuff. And but most of the drumming on that time is way too metronomic, and it's like there's a formula to pop music. You got to stick to that particular groove and playing the same way and have that same boring snare sound all over. Like what it does with, got to talk about In the Air Tonight first, because it's where the first kind of drum sound comes in the album. You have those electronic loops and it builds up, and the song is getting more and more tense, and then you hear that massive drum fill that everyone knows and has been in TV adverts and movies and all this stuff. When that comes in, you can hear the reverb, you can hear the natural reverb of the room. That is the thing. It's not only the, so that's what I'm saying. He was really good at mixing the you know, all the technological possibilities of the time with the actual drumming and the actual acoustic sound. So as you normally have the predictable grooves in pop music, the way he plays in this album particularly, there's a lot of it sounds to me there's a little bit of like African percussion and reggae in some stuff, but there's there's loads and loads of Motown.
Yeah.
Loads of Motown vibes in it, and he grew up listening to R&B and soul and Motown, and I think his playing is more organic. I kind of, I don't like using this word because everyone uses it as well, but it is organic playing. It's not very metronomic, it's not boring, it's not repetitive, it's not machine-like, but the machines are there to help him.
Yeah,
it's all of it.
So can you let me just explain, because I want to just go on this point about the gated reverb, because it's quite important. So gated reverb, it creates a powerful sharp drum sound by cutting off the reverb abruptly. So if you hit a snare and there's lots of reverb on it, you're going to get a bow, 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 bow.
Yeah.
If I don't know if my mic picked that up, but you'll have a little echo going on there. There'll be a little delay. Now, what this does is it cuts off the reverb before it allows itself to delay it a bit. So that, what does this do to a drum sound, Philippe? I know you're not like major production, but
I'm not really into this side of the recording. I think in this case, what you can hear is like you don't have the echo like as a delay thing, and you have the reverb itself.
It hits you sort of straight away, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And you have that massive, that big sound come straight to your ears without being cut in how can I say? It's not like a series of sounds. It's one big sound coming straight in your face.
Yeah.
And he says that about the production. He said he actually mentioned the Alien movie, where the alien just goes like and attaches itself to someone's face like that. He said, I wanted the drum sound to feel like that in your face. It's like glued to your face. You can't get rid of it.
It's a shock when it comes in, isn't it?
It is.
It is.
And you're not expecting, it's like almost at the end of the song, it's just after the you know, after you get past half of the song, first half of the song, and you're thinking like, okay, nothing's going to happen in the song anymore, and that kicks in. That sound. And another thing about that song specifically is there's no cymbals in that song. It's drum loop.
Oh yeah.
And everything, the groove he plays from the second half onwards is kick and snare only, and the fills played on the toms all the time. He doesn't use cymbals, so it's kind of tribal, isn't it? Yeah. Every time there's no cymbals, it feels more like, you know.
Let's talk about that, because I love you mentioned it. The African and the percussion, the sounds we got there. Now the song, we haven't got a little segment at the end to talk about our favourites, but I will just tell you, Hand in Hand is probably my favourite of the album. I thought that was just stunning. As usual, guys, if we mention any songs, so you're going to see the playlist for this episode in the show notes. You just click it and it will take you to the Spotify, where every song of this album, plus any other we mention, will be put there so you guys can have a listen to along with it. Now, this reminded me of a song by Marcus Miller called We Were There, so that will be in the playlist as well. And it's just... I tell you, when I heard this album, when I heard elements of it, including Hand in Hand, what was the other one? Droned, even things like, even some of the funkier ones, things like, you know, I Missed Again. I thought about Graceland by Paul Simon.
Oh wow!
Because Paul Simon and Graceland has that obvious foreign influence on Western pop music.
Yeah,
it's Paul Simon writing traditional Western music in the sense of structures, normal chord progressions, but he's used African instruments, and he was so heavy to do that in 1986. And it's just interesting that Phil Collins does it here.
Yeah, I want to point to this. Like back in the day, when it wasn't that easy to just go on Google and find anything you wanted to, Western musicians and songwriters used to say, you know, world music every time they're referring to anything that's not European or American, isn't it? It's like, you're isolated in your own culture, and you kind of dominate the world in a cultural way with your music, and then you start hearing stuff, and as I said, it's just foreign, whatever that is.
Yeah.
It's from another country, it's
Yeah.
African, or it's Jamaican, or is Brazilian, whatever, and you try to mix it in. But the cool thing about it, in my opinion, is like when you don't know enough about those genres, you're gonna mix them with your music in a really kind of original way. It has to be original because you don't know what you're doing. Yeah, it's
an innocent way.
great.
You might use an instrument the way it's not meant to be used, but you might still achieve what you want.
And you're gonna take rhythms and chords and melodies that don't necessarily belong to Western music, but when he blends with the music, it just works. And I think he was really good at that, at using that, using the percussion and the choirs as well. There's some children's choirs in a few songs.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I think that's a really nice addition to it, and definitely another lovely layer and texture. But the whole album has this. It's really interesting because when I was listening to it, I couldn't ever really put my finger on a particular genre. Now, you listen to the first song and you think, well, it's kind of rock. And then the second song comes in and you're like, well, hold on, this isn't rock. This is kind of singer-songwritery. Then you go to the third song, which is upbeat and funky, and you're like, well, this is pop. It's just all these little styles flying around. But we got lots. I already mentioned, prog rock stuff. Now, this is not a prog rock album at all, and the only reason we're mentioning prog rock is because Phil Collins has been in Genesis. But I think it's so obvious that this was written by someone who's done prog rock.
Yes,
there's so much attention to detail.
The Genesis song, right?
Yes, they did. Yeah, behind the lines.
Yeah, exactly. But he did it in a kind of Motown vibe, isn't it?
Yeah.
He said there's something. You know that song, "I Want You Back" by the Jackson 5.
Yeah.
His version of Behind the Lines it reminds me of that song. And apparently he was listening to a sped up version of someone sped up a tape of Behind the Lines, the Genesis version. And he was like, "Oh, it sounds a little bit like Michael Jackson," or something like that. And
so that's where he got the inspiration.
Yeah,
from.
so and he just played the song fast and then obviously cut all the 2-minute prog intro and all the stuff. He made it a complete different song.
Yeah,
and it's I like both versions of it. It's
interesting. I just think there's so much attention to detail in this album. It's not pop album in the sense of we'll just throw. I feel like with pop music, the chords matter, the instruments not necessarily, but the vocals and the lyrics matter.
Yeah.
But what I hear here is so much attention to detail in things like ambience, the atmosphere, sound effects. Which song is it? Is it The Roof Is Leaking?
Oh,
where you've got
I was about
guitar,
to mention this one. Yeah.
the guitar crying.
Do you know who plays guitar on that track?
I do, yeah, but go on, you tell them.
Eric Clapton is on that one.
Yeah, tracks 1 and 4.
It's on that one, and it's on also, I think, If Leaving Me Is Easy.
Oh, probably tracks 4 and 11, not 1 and 4.
Yes,
yeah, I've got
exactly.
that mixed up. But yeah, that's just a cool little thing, isn't it? But just the way that he's using that guitar, that Clapton's playing it, just to add another layer. The song would essentially still be the same if that guitar wasn't there doing that little...
And that song is kind of typical storytelling, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's literally the roof is leaking. It's literal. And this guy is struggling with really, really tough winter. His wife is expecting a baby. He's just wondering if they're gonna go, go through that winter,
make
it through, and life is going to be better after that. So it makes you picture that scene in your mind. I love that, and that story is not a personal thing. It's something he made up, isn't it? I guess.
Let's get to the lyrics in a second. I just want to finish off on the genre fusion by saying that, throughout this album, as I've said, there's so many different styles, and this, Roof Is Leaking sounds like Cat Stevens to me. There's a song called Silent Sunlight that I'll put in. We've done loads of these today. I mean, we're only a little bit of the way into the episode, and we've already given everyone like 5 or 6 songs to listen to. But it has that singer-songwriter quality to it, where the lyrics and the vocals, you're told, or you're subliminally told to listen to them more. Now, that could be because of the production, or it could be because, of what he's singing about. But singer-songwriter is just kind of one style. We mentioned the prog rock already, the R&B influences. You've got the
Oh yeah,
horns. So the brass band that Earth, Wind and Fire used were called, what were they
yeah.
called? The Phoenixes?
I can find their name here
No,
because
I've got it
it's
written down.
I put on my notes
Go on,
somewhere.
you find it for me. Yeah, but I
Oh,
think it's called Phoenix something. But he brought them in to give an R&B slash Motown sound. But then on
yeah,
top of that, you've got funkiness. The
yeah.
songs like I'm Not Moving, Thunder and Lightning, it's funky. It has a,
It's insane. Yeah,
yeah, and then on top of that, the roof is leaking. How, I have to say that is one of the weirdest songs for me on this album, and I say weird in a polite way. It starts off, the first half of it feels like singer-songwritery, just a piano and someone singing. Yet by the end, it's a country song
yeah.
because of the instrumentation he brings in, because of the little licks and solos he's got Clapton doing on that. I remember hearing the song start and thinking, okay, I have an idea of where this is going, and getting to the end of that song and thinking, boy, was I wrong. And
Yeah.
what a fantastic achievement that nothing's changed. It's not like the
No.
dynamics have gone up. He's brought in an
Yeah.
orchestra. It's just an instrument or two. Yet it changes the dynamic of the song so much.
It does. I think the thing with that song is like there's elements of folk, in my opinion. So there's folk and there's
Yep,
blues in it.
yep. Blues, country,
Obviously,
and
like
folk, I hear.
Clapton's playing is always bluesy.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit of blues, you have a little bit of country and folk, and the album, as we mentioned at the beginning, is so famous for the drum loops and the actual drums. And this song's got no drums, no electronic beats, no drums.
Yeah.
But it's like it's unpredictable. You wouldn't expect that song to be there like in the album. So it just sounds completely different from the rest of the album, which again makes me think that he well excuse my French, he didn't give a fuck. He was like,
No, he didn't. And
it's like, I just
let's
want to do my thing. I want to do this song as it came to my mind,
yeah.
and I don't care if this is not commercial enough or whatever.
So with that in mind, let's move on. Quickly, the horn section were called the Phoenix Horns, and they played in Earth, Wind and Fire. But you've mentioned it. You mentioned it before a few minutes ago, and you mention it now. Why does Phil Collins not give a fuck? And let's talk about the lyrical content of this album.
Yeah.
Now, lyrically, I already mentioned at the start of the episode that we've got a massive influence is the fact that his wife left him with his two children, and he was basically alone. Now, a bit more background is that Phil Collins formed a relationship with singer-songwriter John Martin, and he actually helped him, I don't know whether it was production or writing or lyrics or whatever, he helped him, John Martin, towards the album Grace and Danger in 1980, which had similar themes of divorce and relationships breaking down. So I think everything we've said in the last 10-15 minutes about how the rest of Genesis were doing solo albums, Phil Collins didn't have anything to do, he liked being busy, his wife had left him, he was in an emotional state, it all kind of, and he worked with John Martin about songs that have similar themes, it's all kind of, lightning in a bottle. All of these things, even though they might have been really sad for him, kind of happened at a good time because they all worked together to produce one of the 80s best albums.
Yeah, and well said. And I believe that when you're going through like emotional struggles, you normally, well, not normally, but a lot of people start to go back to that good childhood memories. If they have something good to remember, they go back to that. And I think he was trying to emulate the sound of the Motown, R&B, and soul music he was listening to at home when he was a kid.
But
And there's
adding his lyrics in.
Yeah, it's his lyrics, it's about his life, but the grooves and the horns, all those things they do bring a lot of that sound, a lot of the soul kind of sound into his music. And you have that and electronic stuff on top of it. I don't know how he managed to put it all in one in one basket without sounding weird. It doesn't. It's like highly experimental.
Well, another production,
but it's still commercial enough.
Yeah, another thing back to the production is that he used a lot of multi-track recording, lots of synths, lots of electronic drums, and I think when you have all that technology available to you, it's kind of like the world's your oyster, because he can just texture and layer up things the way he did on this album. It sounds brilliant, but it is a sad album, and I've got 2 words per song that sum up the lyrics, and I just want to go through them quickly. All right, so I won't say the song name. I'll just say track one. 1, betrayal and anger. 2, love and hope. 3, emotional conflict. 4, struggle and resilience. 5 and 6 are instrumentals. 7, regret and missed opportunities. 8, longing and loss. 9, turbulence and uncertainty. 10, determination and resolve. 11, heartache and acceptance. And 12, hope and aspiration.
That's interesting.
But I just think I'm trying to put myself in his mind of being a divorcee and having all these emotional problems at the moment. And I kind of imagine that being the journey someone goes on. Let's just have a look a second. Betrayal and anger. Betrayal and anger. Really upset about the betrayal. Emotional conflict. Struggling. Resilience. Regret. Missing opportunities. But also determination and resolve. Love and hope. Hope and aspiration. You kind of balance these things out. And I just think lyrically, we are just seeing the most... It's like this album is a canvas for him to put his feelings on, and the lyrics backed by the music is the paint that he's putting on this canvas. Because I think I look at this canvas, listen to this album, and I can just feel the pain that this man was going through at that time. And I've never heard an album in our time doing this podcast that has made me focus so heavily on what is being said as opposed to what is being played.
That is really interesting, man, because it's like it's impossible to ignore the content of the lyrics, isn't it?
It's just so in your face. But not obnoxiously in your face.
No, and it's not trying to rhyme all the time. It's not trying to make the lyrics like easy to listen to. Again, it's very original in many ways, including the lyrics, and quite deep. It's funny, but the album doesn't make me feel that sadness. I know it's sad, but I think hope is the key word for the album. When you think about it, now one thing that just crossed my mind: the first song is probably the darkest of all of them. In the Air Tonight, it's quite like you see someone drowning, and you're like,
and the lyrical themes are very.
It's like I'm not doing anything about this, and then it's really dark. And when you get to Tomorrow Never Knows, which is a Beatles song, for me, is him looking at his past as a Beatle fan. If I'm not wrong, he's in one of the Beatles videos. I think if it's not from one of their movies, is when they went on TV. He's one of the kids, like shouting, in the middle of the crowd, like going nuts about the Beatles. So he's a Beatles fan, and he decided to record one of the Beatles songs, and you got to remember that John Lennon just died at the time.
Great point.
So that's the beginning of 81. So apparently he sings Somewhere Over the Rainbow at the end. There's a little bit of it at the end after the song ends, and I think that was somehow kind of a reference to Lennon.
I think it was. Something. I think you're right, but I hear it as the journey we've just been taken on.
Yeah.
Think about that song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, from The Wizard of Oz. Yeah. It's hopeful. It's about aspiring to do something with the life. Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, she wants to do something. There's got to be something better out there. There's got to be something more than this. And I listen to the lyrics of the last 12 songs that he's just sang. Some show me signs of hopefulness in his life. Others show me how sad he is. Some show me how angry he is. Others say, actually, would you know what, I'm content. But yet at the very end, he sings just 2 lines, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which is a hopeful song. So I think he's looking back at the whole album. He's just sung all this song, and he's saying, this is how I feel now, but somewhere over the rainbow, there might be some hope for me.
That is just perfect. Yeah, it's a perfect definition of the album. I think one thing that I really enjoyed about Tomorrow Never Knows, like, how can you do that Beatles song as a cover? Because it's...
As an aside, it's brilliant, isn't it? It's a really good cover. I said it's a great cover, isn't it?
It's so tricky. He kept most of the psychedelic elements of it, the background noises and stuff, but he changed the drum beat slightly. Do you know what the drum beat sounds like? Sounds like a slowed down version of Ticket to Ride. I really want you to listen to those two and compare, because he doesn't play exactly the drum beat for Tomorrow Never Knows. He plays something that's closer to Ticket to Ride, but it's slow.
There you go, guys. So it's going to be in the playlist. Ticket to Ride will be on there as well. So
compare
listen
the
to
drum
them.
beat. So for me, at the very end of the album, he's summing up everything that happens in the album, but with some sort of a positive message. So he's like looking into his past, his influences, the Beatles, psychedelic music, but he's got all the elements from the previous songs somehow into that song.
But
and
also,
I think
and then the title of the song goes back to what I was saying. Tomorrow never knows. You never know what's ahead of you tomorrow.
Exactly. So basically, if you listen to just the first and the last song, you have an idea of how his mood might have changed, writing the album and stuff.
The full spectrum of the album from the first and the last song.
But it's interesting that like track 9, Thunder and Lightning, it's a phenomenal song. And I'm Not Moving is kind of it's almost like disco, very kind of soul kind of vibe as well. A little bit of Bee Gees vibe in that one, in my opinion. And you get to, so it's like after the two instrumental tracks is when you think this album might start to go down in quality from now on, and it doesn't.
No,
it picks it up at the end, and it just starts to become more groovy.
Well, they hit you straight away with "I Missed Again," which is just like the most obvious pop song in the album, as well as track number 3, Behind the Lines. But it's just so great, isn't it? Like you said, Thunder and Lightning and I'm Not Moving, that's proper R&B, Motown groovy. You've got I Missed Again and Behind the Lines poppy. You've got the instrumentals droned and hand in hand. If Leaving Me Is Easy and The Roof Is Leaking are really heartfelt songs that's just him and an instrument. You know, it really does it all in 12 songs, doesn't it? Really, and just I think scopes.
I think he was like showing to the world that he didn't need a band to be great. He was great on his own. And
so let's talk about
that. One thing I want to say is like, again, this album is considered like an iconic pop album. Pop music, especially nowadays, has become so much more about how you look than how you sing or anything else. Phil Collins doesn't look like a rock star. Doesn't, it's like, it looks like your accountant, doesn't it? It's like it's just someone you meet in the street. It's just like, it's all about the music. He's not trying to be cool. He's just putting all his energy into writing and performing great music. And I think no one can do it as well as he can.
I was just going to ask you how this ranks as a debut album, because it is, isn't it?
Yeah. As a solo artist,
his debut album.
I would say something that he said he's not a singer who plays a bit of drums. He's a drummer who sings a bit, and that is
interesting.
Yeah, that says a lot about him.
Yeah.
All his music is built around the groove, so that's why as a debut album he has that element of he's a drummer acting like a lead singer. Expressing his emotions, but the music is still about the groove, the beat, and the energy. So as a debut album, that is got to be on the top 5 of all times, in my opinion.
Wow, that's a massive shout.
As a debut for a solo artist, because no other solo artist in pop music is a drummer, or was at the time.
That's a fair shout, and that's a that's a big shout from you, but I don't know if I disagree. I think when I hear this album, if you can't, you have to put out the back of your mind that he was in Genesis and look at it like that, because the reason it resonates with me is because I love those singer-songwriter types that just sing with an instrument. Cat Stevens, James Taylor, Carole King, I love them because I feel it's so authentic. And I listen to this not expecting to put this album in with those people, and it's been done. So yeah, true. What a debut album from him. Did you have anything else? Because I was going to summarize the successes and then
call it a day. Yeah.
You're done. You don't have anything else to say.
Just nothing. Well, we could talk about this for ages, but okay. If I have one more thing, just
go for it.
It's what I think is the fact that you have a phenomenal musician doing something that is that ended up being a commercial hit. It's something that has become rare in pop music, I believe, and being being able to do commercial music, experimenting all the time, mixing different styles, and bringing your roots of prog rock and having the drums as the main instrument in the album, which I believe it is, and that's completely unusual, and it changed the game for pop music, and I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again. And he said
Well,
that the song In the Air Tonight specifically and the album, that is kind of a curse for him. He said, like, you don't write that song twice. He
well,
said that,
Felipe,
so he couldn't beat him, so he couldn't like be better himself after that.
Well,
Yeah.
Felipe just answered the question I was going to ask him
Right.
after my monologue, which is what makes this album rock and roll. But you've done it, man. That was the perfect
So
answer.
Okay.
You pre-saw it.
So maybe it's time for the
great points,
monologue,
man. Yeah, great points. We will just finish off with my monologue, but a little bit about the commercial success of it. So chart positions, it went straight to number 1 in the UK, went to number 7 in the US, and also took out high positions in Canada, Australia, and a few other European countries. It went 5 times platinum in the UK and 5 times platinum in the US, so that's 10 million worldwide. In the Air Tonight went to number 2 in the UK, only number 19 in the US. But the critics praised the album for the production, the emotional depth, the musicianship, the raw personal nature of the lyrics. It was nominated I think it won the Brit Award for Best British Male Solo Artist in 1982 and was nominated for multiple Grammys. And as Felipe mentioned at the start, In the Air Tonight is like a cultural staple of a song, be it in movies, TV adverts, the drum fill, exactly. So, I think this album definitely hinges on the reputation of that. No, sorry, let me rephrase that. This album is judged by the reputation of that song, but it by no means hinges on it. And I'll do my monologue to finish off. So, Face Value is a pretty unique album. You can tell it's been written by someone from a prog rock band as it's filled with layers and textures that really add an emotional depth to the album. The album is as poppy as it is experimental and as funky as it is sad. We're treated to many different styles and genres through the album, and it's a pleasure to not know what's around the corner. But there is an underlying link between the songs, even if the musical style isn't consistent, and that is the lyrics. They are sad, somber, heartbreaking, mournful, grieving, yet also hopeful, accepting and determined. This journey Phil Collins takes us on is akin to reading a book or watching a TV show. For probably the first time since we began the podcast, I listened to the lyrics, the words and the delivery of them more so than the music. It truly encapsulates and expresses the emotions of a man mourning a relationship, but with the glimmer of thought that there may be hope on the horizon. Each song is reflective of this attitude and presents us with an emotional, heartfelt, sorrowful journey of words that is only enhanced by some of the fantastic music placed behind it.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah, but I'm very pleasantly surprised by this album. It really, when we've spoken about pop music before, and I didn't love Fleetwood Mac as much as and I'm only using that one because that's, I think, the next most poppy one we've done. And Rumours, solid album. I'm not going to sit here and criticise it. It just wasn't for me. I didn't love it. This one, however, I can feel, as I've said plenty of times this episode already, and I'll say it once more, you can just completely feel the emotion running through it. And that, which is just so unusual for me, Felipe, you know me, I'm not a lyrics guy. I'm not about the vocal melody and how he sings this word to me or whatever. I'm all about the music, but this album it may well have turned me. So well done, Phil.
yeah. We need to thank Phil Collins for this masterpiece. I think I think this album will live forever in the history of pop music.
It's already 43 years old and it still stands strong, doesn't it?
Yeah, how many episodes have we done?
This is the 78th episode we've done.
See, we should have talked about Phil Collins before. I've been waiting for this moment all
my
life.
We did though. We did Genesis.
You missed the punch.
Oh, bro, that was brilliant. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Do it again. You need to have your glorious moment. Do it again. I'll play
you've heard it. I've said it.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But we did do the Genesis episode.
You know that happened. That happened to me one. Believe me or not, it took me 20 years of teaching drums for someone to ask me to learn that song.
Wow.
So I want to learn In the Air Tonight. So, oh my God, I got to sit down and make the joke because I've been waiting for this moment all my life.
Brilliant. I'm so sorry I ruined it. I was like, so we've done
I just said it
Genesis.
again.
We've
It's
done, yeah,
okay,
there you go. Perfect, cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. As I said at the start of the episode, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe so you stay up to date with our content. And if you're listening on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or any other podcast platform, please go down and give us a review and a little comment about what we do. It really means the world to us. Only about 20 to 30 seconds for you, but will do so much for us, and it will be well and truly appreciated. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for being with us again. Keep on rocking, everyone. Don't do anything I wouldn't do.
And as usual, guys, take care and long live rock and roll.